One of these men is the winner of a 1962 Pulitzer Prize. What is your name, please?
My name is Robert D. Mullins.
My name is Robert D. Mullins.
My name is Robert D. Mullins.
Only one of these men is the real Robert D. Mullins. The other two are imposters and will try to fool this panel. Johnny Carson, Mimi Benzell, and now appearing at the Empire Room of the Waldorf Astoria, Peter Lynn Hayes and Betty White, on To Tell the Truth with your host, Bud Collier.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome once again to Tell the Truth. Brought to you this week by Tristan Decongestant Tablets, the 3-layer tablet for fast, really effective relief from colds, miseries, and pollen allergies. Peter, welcome to Tell the Truth. Real pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Bud. I haven't seen you since a benefit we did in Hartford.
That's a scant 10 days ago. How's Mary?
Mary who? She's fine. She's sitting at home with the children watching this show.
Good. I'm glad she's watching, at least. Panel, good evening to all of you.
Good evening, teacher.
And now, if you will please, for the first time tonight, open up those envelopes, remove your affidavit cards, which you have not seen before, and follow along as I read from this first one. I, Robert D. Mullins, am a reporter for the Salt Lake City Deseret News. Last July, I covered a murder kidnapping at Dead Horse Point, Utah. During my 7 days on the case, I drove nearly 2,000 miles through desolate and dangerous country. At one point, I even became a suspect. Although I often found myself in remote points 250 miles from the city room, I managed never to miss a deadline. For my coverage of this story, I was given the most distinguished and coveted award in journalism. I am the winner of a 1962 Pulitzer Prize. Signed, Robert D. Mullins. All right, panel, you heard these 3 gentlemen, all claiming to be the distinguished writer, reporter, Robert D. Mullins, who won the Pulitzer Prize for journalism. And let's begin this questioning with Betty White. Betty?
Oh, swell. First out of the box. Thank you, Bud. Number 1, what kind of general countryside, what kind of looking countryside is it around Dead Horse Point?
Desert, strictly rock, and very dry.
Number 2, how did you get your stories in?
Oh, hard work.
But I mean, how did you actually get the stories in to never miss a deadline if you were in such remote areas?
Use the telephone.
Plugged in at the nearest number 3?
Well, by airplane.
And there were...
Radio communication.
Always. And number 1, do you agree with that? How did you get your stories in?
Every means possible, really.
Now that's hedging. Come on.
Car.
Johnny Carson.
Helicopter.
Number 3, who's the mayor of Salt Lake City?
J. Braken Little.
Number 2, where is Dead Horse Point? That's the name of a city?
It's an area.
Dead Horse Point, Utah.
Dead Horse Point, Utah.
Number 2, who won the Pulitzer? Is it Pulitzer or Pulitzer?
Well, in my own interpretation, I think it's Pulitzer.
Pulitzer. Who won the Pulitzer Prize this year for poetry?
For poetry. I'm sorry, I do not know that.
Number 1, can you tell me?
I don't know.
Mimi.
Contestant number 3, would you be able to tell me approximately how many seats there are in the Mormon Tabernacle?
8,000.
Contestant number 2, in Salt Lake City, they have a most unusual way of keeping the streets clean and cool and dry in the summer. Would you tell me how they do that?
Well, I believe they spray the streets with from a water tank.
They spray them. Contestant number 3, outside of Salt Lake City is a little city called Twilly, Utah. I've been there.
Which number? Which?
Contestant number 1.
Oh, because you said 3 and we're looking at 1, and they were all looking a little confused.
I beg your pardon. Twilly, Utah. Contestant number 1. And there is a very large smelting plant of some sort. Would you know that? It's quite famous. What they smelt?
Yes.
Terrible.
Not how, but what?
What?
Oh, uranium.
Peter Lynn Hayes.
Number one, how many trips did you make back and forth to Salt Lake City in covering the story?
Oh, at least 4 or 5.
Number two?
4 or 5.
Number three?
Well, actually, I couldn't remember. We did 2,000 miles there, and
Number two, who draws the cartoon Moon Mullins?
I think his first name is Willard, or last name.
Yeah. Number one, did you communicate at all by helicopter when you were covering the story?
Oh, yes.
You did. Number two, did you?
No, I didn't.
That's all the time we have, panel. So the next business on hand is that of marking your ballots. So will you get to that immediately, please? No more questions, no more time for it, and of course, without consultation. Vote now for number one, number two, or number three. Team of challengers will, as is customary, receive $250 for every incorrect vote. All ballots marked? Okay, Johnny, for whom did you vote?
I haven't yet.
I thought you had. I beg your
Stalling for time, Bud.
You were just hugging your card, was that it?
I really don't know. I have the slightest idea which gentleman it is. But I voted for number two out of sheer desperation. But I don't know.
Mimi, which one did you select?
Well, I'm like Johnny. I'm a little confused, but I voted for number two. I have sung in the Mormon Tabernacle. I didn't think there were 8,000 seats. Number one, the large plants outside of Salt Lake, I think they smelt either copper or lead. And number two is correct. They run water down the streets in Salt Lake and cool them that way. So I hope it's number two.
Peter.
I voted for number two because with the name of Mullins, which is an odd name, he would naturally know who created Frank Willard's wonderful cartoon, Moon Mullins. I kind of think that way.
Okay, and Betty, which one did you pick?
When you know it, I voted for number three. Not to be different, because I didn't know how they voted, and if I had known, I probably would have voted for number two. But I agree with Mimi. I don't believe that they smelt uranium around there, and from the look of the tan and the twinkle in number three's eyes, I'd like it to be him. I mean, for this spot.
Okay, come to our first crisis now as we learn in a matter of seconds which one of these gentlemen is the real one that we're seeking. In other words, which one is the gentleman who won the Pulitzer Prize. So will the real Robert D. Mullins please stand up? Yeah. Thank you very much, Bob, and our sincere congratulations to you.
Thank you very much, Bud.
Job very well done.
Well, if you're going to be wrong, be good and wrong.
You might as well.
How much was the prize worth? I'm just curious.
$1,000.
$1,000. It's funny because Frank Lesser and Abe Burrows had to split $500. I know.
Number one, would you tell us your real name and what you really do, please?
I'm Dr. Scott Severance, dentist in Manhattan.
And number three, your real name and what you do, please.
My name is Carol Dooley. I'm the managing director of 2 luxury resort hotels in Bermuda, the Bermudiana and Harmony Hall.
Well, when we check our score, we find in this first round there was only one incorrect vote. The panel was pretty sharp tonight to start things off, and that one means a total of $250 from Dristan, as well as a gift package of all the fine products from the makers of Dristan. Gentlemen, thank you very much for starting things off so pleasantly. Good night to you, and God bless you. Now let's meet our next team of challengers.
What is your name, please?
My name is Betty Jo Hember. My name is Betty Jo Hember.
My name is Betty Jo Hember.
Again, follow along, panel, if you will, with your copies of this affidavit. I, Betty Jo Hember, am a college student. I am also a bowler. Although I have bowled since I was 10 years old, my biggest thrill in the sport came last month at Phoenix, Arizona. There, in competition with the 20 qualifying finalists, I bowled a tournament average of 180 pins per game to become the Intercollegiate Women's Bowling Champion. Signed, Betty Jo Hember. This time, panel, as you heard, we have three charming ladies, each one claiming to be Betty Jo Hember, Women's Intercollegiate Bowling Champion. We'll start this cross-examination with Johnny Carson. Johnny?
Bud, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to disqualify myself.
Huh?
I know, I'm quite sure that I recognize a couple of these young ladies. Nothing personal.
Okay, Johnny,
I should.
that disqualification will count as an incorrect vote when the total is tallied. Moves us along to Mimi.
Thanks a lump, son. Contestant number 1, would you tell me what the lightest ball is that one could bowl with?
10 pounds.
A 10-pound.
right.
Contestant number 2, do you agree with that?
Yes.
Contestant number 3, do you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
Contestant number 2, how many fingers do you put into the ball?
2 fingers.
Contestant number 3, how many fingers do you put into the ball?
2 fingers.
Contestant number 1?
I put 3 fingers.
Must be a tricky ball.
Peter.
At number 2, where is the Camelback Inn?
The what?
The Camelback Inn.
I have no idea.
Number 3. Number 1, where is the Camelback Inn?
I don't know.
You don't, eh? And you're the one that puts 3 fingers in. Where is Thunderbird Air Force Training School? Number 1. I'm sorry. Number 1.
I don't know.
Do you know number 2?
No.
Number 3?
No.
You never met anybody from the Air Force?
They don't make girls like they used to. By George.
Number 2, what's a perfect game?
300.
Number 3?
300.
Betty.
Thank you, Bud. Number 3, how many 300 games have you ever bowled?
None.
Number 1?
No.
Number 2, how many times do you actually have to throw the ball to bowl 300?
10.
Number 3, do you agree with that?
30.
Number 1, do you agree with that?
I agree with number 2.
Number 2, do you bowl right or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Do you start off on your left or right foot?
That's all the time we have, so we'll have to keep which foot it's on the wrong foot at the moment at least. Maybe it won't be, though, however, when we tally things up, because it's time now to vote. So will you kindly do so, panel? Without further ado, and above all, without consultation. Vote now for number 1, number 2, or number 3. All right, Johnny's goes as a disqualified vote or an incorrect vote as we total it up. Mimi, which one did you select?
Well, I voted for contestant number 1, although I'm very surprised. When I take my little boy bowling, I think we get an 8-pound ball. I think there's a lighter ball. Of course, I didn't qualify for children. Also, whenever I've bowled, I've used 3 fingers unless something's wrong, unless it's a special kind of a ball. 3 fingers?
All right, Peter.
Well, I voted for number 2, and for a very simple reason. I know very little about bowling. I'm a golf addict. But I voted for number 2 because she has a lovely tan, and it's usually very sunny in Phoenix and Tucson. So she has a lovely color. I voted for her for that simple reason.
In bowling alleys, honey?
Betty, which one did you select?
Lots of luck, Peter. I voted for the tan on the last one. We had 2 resort hotels in Bermuda. This is kind of like I think. Well, I voted for number 2 because, well, I liked her ready answers. She looks pretty athletic. And I think there are 2-finger balls, especially in tournament bowling.
Okay, there we go once again. Our moment of truth is about to come up and stare us in the face. Let's see whether we wince the least bit as we face truth and find out which one of these ladies is the new Women's Intercollegiate Bowling Champion. So will the real Betty Jo Hember please stand up? Well, you know, instinctively, they're all actresses. Did you see the delay bit they did on that one? That was a really Tinkers to Evers to Chance bit. Congratulations on your championship, young lady. Thank you. Nice to have you with us. Number one, would you tell us your real name and what you really do?
My name is Claire Cloutier. I'm from Auburn, Maine. And in connection with Armed Forces Week, I was selected as Miss Marine Corps.
Congratulations to you. And last but by no means least, number three, your real name and what you do.
My name is Airman Third Class Nancy Darrow. I am from San Diego, California, and I am Miss Air Force.
Congratulations to you. Yes, Pete.
I hate to get personal, but I do want to know why Johnny Carson disqualified him.
So do I. Why did you, Johnny?
Flirt.
Well, it's,
yeah, sure it is. It always is.
I was in the service.
Oh.
What was the reason?
No, I had met the young ladies in connection with the observance of Special Armed Services Week some time ago. But out of uniform, without the clothes, without the uniform.
I beg your pardon? All right, John,
without the uniform on, there is a difference.
Why don't you just leave well enough alone? Okay, well, in checking the score, we find that there were two incorrect, counting Johnny's disqualification as one, and the other one voted that way. And that is $250 each is a total of $500, ladies. Hope you had fun. You certainly brought a lot of laughs to us. Good night to you, and God bless. Let's meet our third team of challengers.
What is your name, please?
My name is Luis Morse. My name is Luis Morse. My name is Luis Morse.
Again, follow along, panel, if you will, with your copies of this affidavit. I, Luis Morse, fled from my native Cuba in 1960. When I arrived in the United States, I joined the Cuban Army of Liberation. And in April of last year, I returned to my country as part of the invasion force which landed at the Bay of Pigs. I was wounded, then captured. Last month, 1,200 of us were given a mass trial and sentenced to 30 years at hard labor. Recently, without notice, 60 of us were released from prison and flown to this country and temporary freedom. Signed, Luis Morse. Panel, these three gentlemen all claim to be Luis Morse, soldier in the Cuban invasion force. Now, before we start, I would like to point out that the real Luis Morse has friends and relatives in the brigade who are still imprisoned in Cuba. He wants to say nothing which will act to their detriment. So please guide your questions accordingly. We'll start with Mimi Benzell. Mimi?
Number one, what part of the island of Cuba is the Bay of Pigs?
It's in the south of Cuba, in Matanzas, Provincia de Matanzas.
Number two, what does the Morro Castle mean to you? The Morro Castle?
The Morro Castle is in Havana, old fortress.
Number three, what did you do in the invasion?
I was a soldier in the invasion.
You were an infantry soldier?
I was second in command of a company in the invasion.
Contestant number one, what was your wound? What was your wound?
I was wounded in the shoulder, hit the nerve.
Thank you.
Peter.
Number one, what is the home of Desi Arnaz?
I really don't know.
Number two?
I was in prison for the last 2 years, and I used to be of a small town in Cuba.
Number three, the home of Desi Arnaz. You do not know. Number one, what do you mean by temporary freedom?
Because we consider ourselves still prisoners. We came to raise money, and we are going back if we don't raise.
You're going to voluntarily give yourself up?
Yeah.
Go back to Cuba?
Prison.
Betty.
Thank you, Bud. Number 3, what very stirring statement was made by you 60 men in regard to returning to Cuba? In regard to the rest of the 1,100.
In regard of the... I don't understand the question.
You don't understand the
I
question?
do not understand the question.
There was a very stirring promise made at the time of your arrival in this country in regard to all of you prisoners. You separated yourselves not at all from the other prisoners still in Cuba. Do you remember what that statement was?
We still consider ourselves a part of the brigade.
Number 2, do you agree with that?
Yes.
Number 1?
I agree.
Number 1...
Johnny.
Number 3, I don't know whether this is in the realm of questioning, but it interests me. Do you feel that this invasion of Cuba was ill-advised or ill-planned?
I am sorry, I cannot answer any opinion.
I just meant personally. I mean, how you felt personally about it. Number 2, could you answer that?
Possibly they feel, Johnny, that this is the kind of a question that might do damage to their
I see. Well,
friends, relatives, and so
it.
forth.
Number 2, could you tell me the name of the naval base in Cuba, the American naval base?
Guantánamo, Provincia de Oriente.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have, unfortunately. But if you will please get to the business at hand of marking your ballots, we may come to some kind of a resolution and find out which one of these gentlemen is the real member of the Cuban invasion force. So will you, right now, without consultation, vote for number 1, number 2, or number 3? You know, when all ballots are marked. Yours marked, Johnny?
Yes.
Have you voted? Mimi voted?
No, but...
Okay.
This is rather difficult.
Yes, it is. Johnny, which one do you think is the real one?
I'll go along with Pete. It's most difficult. This is such of an involved subject. You really have to have a little time to question, to try to narrow it down. I voted for 3, I think, in response to Betty's question, I guess. And also because probably not of the answer of the first question I asked tonight. I'll vote for number 3.
Mimi.
Well, I entirely agree. This is the most difficult decision I've had to make. I really don't exactly know why I voted for number 2. His answers are very concise, precise, and there was no hesitation on answering the historical parts, but I'm probably all wrong.
Peter.
I haven't a clue. I voted for number 3 because he has piercing blue eyes.
And Betty, which one did you choose?
I hope you'll be very happy. I voted for number 1.
He looks like Jerry Lewis.
No, but really, on the basis of the answers, it was almost impossible to judge, so I had to go on my original hunch, which is generally wrong.
All right, there we come once more now for the 3rd time tonight to this moment of truth when we learn which one of these gentlemen is the one we're after. So, without any further ado, will the real Luis Morse please stand up?
There we got it.
Thank you, sir, very much. Pleasure to have you here with us tonight. Number 1, would you tell us your real name and what you really do, please?
My name is Paulo Menezes, and I'm a Brazilian lawyer working on Wall Street.
I think we'll all agree that at the moment, Wall Street needs a little working on. Number 2, may we have your real name and what you do, please?
My name is Antonio Lizardi. I am not a Cuban. I do work as a public relations man for the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico.
Thank you, sir. Well, we check our score and find again it's a 2-2 standoff. In other words, there were 2 correct and 2 incorrect. And the $250 each for the incorrect ones, that is a total of $500, gentlemen. As well from Dristan as a gift package of the fine products from the makers of Dristan. Thank you very much for being with us. Hope you enjoyed your visit. Good night. God bless you. I'm beginning to think there's something to this blue eyes bit, because there's Peter Lynn Hayes with the bluest eyes you'll ever want to see, and he got all 3 right on his first time on the show. How did you do it, Pete?
Politics. No, actually, you know, I study blue eyes because I like Ben Hogan's swing.
Aha, that'll
He
do
has
it
the
every
piercing
time.
blue eyes.
Well, panel, thank you again for a lovely evening. Hope you enjoyed it half as much as I did. Good night, panel.
Good night, Ben.
Bud Collier saying good night from Gristad and reminding you to tell the truth. Good night, everybody.
To Tell the Truth is a Mark Goodson, Bill Todman production. To Tell the Truth has been brought to you by Easy On Spray Starch. The new push-button starch, spray it, iron instantly. New Easy On Spray Starch. Johnny Olson saying goodnight for To Tell the Truth. This program is pre-recorded.